Joseph Williams.
Let's bow our heads in prayer. Our Father and our God, first of all, God, we want to tell you thank you for your love and for your kindness, God. Father, as we approach this new school year, God, we pray for students, God, who have a hunger and a desire to learn, God. And Father, we pray for teachers who have a hunger and a desire to teach, God. Father, look over the law enforcement, God, that's here to protect staff as well as the students, God. And Father, just have your way this year and this season, God. Protect them, keep them safe, and protect them from all hurt, harm, and danger. Father, we love you, we thank you, and we appreciate all that you do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
The Clay County School Board meeting of August 1st, 2024 will now come to order. Welcome, citizens of Clay County. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend tonight's school board meeting. This meeting is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and the education of our children here in Clay County. If you wish to address the board on an agenda item, there will be an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Please fill out a card located at the side entry door indicating the specific item number or topic you wish to speak about and turn it in promptly to one of our officers. If you have items that you would like to present to the school board or superintendent, please hand them to an officer who will distribute them accordingly. Speakers who wish to address specific agenda items will be heard following the recognitions and awards portion of the meeting. Speakers wishing to address non-agenda items will be heard following the business portion of the meeting after the adoption of the consent agenda. No additional cards will be accepted once the board moves to the public comment section under presentations from the audience. Your participation is welcomed and appreciated. All right, so seeing as we have no recognitions and awards or presenters this evening, we will be moving right into public comment, and this is agenda items only, which we have none. So, discussion agenda. Item D1 is to explore with the intent to engage internal audit services. I don't suppose we need to begin with a motion, Mr. Blocker? Or can we just begin with discussion?
You can start with discussion, ma'am, but if there's any action, we'd have to have a motion in a second.
Okay. All right, I'll open the floor. Would anybody like to begin? Okay. Well, I can start. Just based on our discussion last week, why don't we just begin with kind of where we left off? I think we all agreed that we needed to move forward with this item. There was conversation surrounding whether to engage in hiring an individual or to look into contracting out for the service. So I feel like that's kind of the direction that the staff is looking for us to give tonight as to which direction they should pursue filling this need. So when we left our discussion off, I think myself, Ms. Bola, and Ms. Clark agreed that we would like to move forward with a firm. I think Ms. Hanson, Ms. Skipper, you wanted to hire an individual. Has there been any change to that, I guess would be my question. Mm-hmm.
Will we be part of this hiring process since they report to us as a board?
If it's an individual or if it's a firm?
Either.
Either one. So my understanding would be if we were to hire a firm where we're contracting out for service, Mr. Blocker, would that require an RFP?
Yes, ma'am, that would be the preferred.
Mm-hmm. So then for an RFP, that with other services in the district, we'll sometimes have a board member sitting on the committee that kind of does the interview process once the RFP bids are received, and we would kind of follow that same process with this.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So are you familiar with that process?
So, I mean, kind of. I mean, it's kind of, I want to say self-explanatory, but at the same time, that doesn't give us the flexibility to vet, if that makes sense. I want to make sure that, w- that we have the ability to choose, essentially.
Well, so the committee makes a recommendation. So
Right.
you would have an RFP, and that's really your vetting because it's basically that firm has to fill out an application that is extensive, and most companies complain about having to fill those out. They cost a lot of time for the company that's responsible for producing the bid. So once all of the bids are received, then the interview selection process happens with the committee, and then the committee of those applicants will then make a recommendation to the board. So it is ultimately the board's decision, and if you're not comfortable with who the committee recommends, we have the ability to send the RFP out again.
Who is on this committee? Do we pick the committee?
Well, it's not established yet because it's not a standing committee. It would be a
Right.
brand new one. So yes, we would decide which of us would sit on the committee. We can't all because it would be a sunshine issue.
Right. But
And
as far
then-
as the other members who are on this committee, would we as a board, or we only have one spot in this committee?
So the way that committees have worked in the past, I believe it's 2 staff members to 1 board member. Is that correct?
Doc, go ahead and weigh in.
Good afternoon. Yes, on the committee, as you stated, it's 2 to 1. The one key person that's in that committee is the purchasing agent, who actually works directly with whomever is on the committee to decide on the scope of, the scope of work, what we need to place in that RFP. What are the things that you do want in there so that it's placed out there? But yes, it is, again, it's the board member, it's 2 to 1.
And the board would be partially through that one committee member responsible for stating what they're looking for with the RFP, correct? Like you would develop the RFP together.
Right, it would be a collaboration between everyone.
Okay.
So I have a question about that 1 to 2 thing that we just talked about. So I know for a fact in other counties, you can, more than one board member can attend any committee. You have to advertise that there'll be more than one. So you have to advertise it so it does not break sunshine. I think that maybe where Ms. Skipper was heading a little bit is that we're not necessarily restricted to one, but it's how you, is this right, Mr. Blocker, that you would have to advertise that more than one school board member would be present?
If there's more than one school member present, you'd have to advertise it. Both of them are going to weigh in on issues.
Yeah.
You would have to advertise that as to satisfy sunshine. A lot of times, most districts will not do that because they don't want to go through the advertising process and not make it a public meeting. But it actually would have to be a public meeting with public input. So that's generally why it's limited to one board member.
But it doesn't have to be limited because I know people who don't. So is that something that?
So I'll just say my concern with that is you're essentially conducting
And that, I think, is where my concern of an individual came down. I was like, one person's not going to be strategic, it is not going to be a specialist enough in all of the areas. We don't have a specialist in every area of the school system, but if we hire a company. Now, the next step though in this RFP is to be able to say, so what are the scope of services that we want in this company? Do we, I know that there are companies out there that evaluate school systems. We all know that. And there have been a number of them that we've looked at. And I guess setting up that scope of services and saying, okay, we want a company to be able to do all of the areas that I just mentioned and then some.
Or maybe not, maybe not.
Whatever that might be. And we, I would assume, as a board, need to say, what are the key areas that we're most concerned about?
Right.
That would then help lead, whether we do it in a public setting or in a one, in a typical RFP. I've sat on RFPs with more than just 3 people though. And it depends on what the RFP is for. So depending on what we're looking for, and if we want to make it a public, like when we hired our attorney, if we want to make that a public thing, then yeah, we can go to the public and say, we're going to do this as a team.
Yeah, so I just have a really small amount
Okay.
of clarification.
I would like a team effort, and since we're talking about dollars, taxpayer dollars, we're talking about, all the way around, whether you're talking about funding, whether you're talking about allocations, whether you're talking about operations, all that's all taxpayer dollars. For me, that is transparent. Us, one, working together as a team. And I don't know that I would limit it to, okay, we want you to focus on X, Y, and Z, because that might just be today.
And
You know what I
that's-
mean?
that's
I would like
exactly. But we have to have an idea where to
everything.
start. You know what I'm
Right, and I'm
saying?
sure that they could come in and say,
So,
hey.
so traditionally, I've gone through all the counties, traditionally, there will be a development of an audit committee, and the audit committee has numerous people on it. We would have to decide, it also has school board member on it. Dr. Legucco has citizens from the county. They actually take the time to generate our priorities. And so it's not as difficult as it seems, because if you go through all the different counties, pretty much everybody almost has the same priorities. Some schools have, maybe a larger district might have something different. Maybe it is more with internal accounts because of the money. But what I found out after our last meeting was some people need clarification on exactly what we're talking about. So this is what I believe that we're seeking. And then an independent auditor helps the district achieve its objective by systematically evaluating and improving the effectiveness of risk management, control and governance, and the implementation of best practice to keep us transparent. To function properly, and this is where I have the biggest concern about how we're going to go about getting either, and I hear you, either a firm or an individual. My biggest concern is to function properly, auditors must be independent of the activities the audit is auditing. Such independence permits auditors to perform their work freely and objectively, and that part is guided by Florida statute. They have access to everything.
Right.
And can be denied nothing. So
And-
that is a
and that-
guarantee.
Right, and that is why I think having a firm instead of an employee would
And so
help
whether,
keep the.
I'm okay, I know we're doing a great thing here, and I'm okay with whatever we decide, but a school board auditor reports to the school board through the audit committee, and so they will be providing the independence. It's the audit committee that provides the independence to objectively appraise operations of the school district. So I don't think we can't really come up with it right now, and because it's prioritized by a group of people, and we might even want to get some experts to weigh in on this, but I just wanted to make sure that people knew that through auditing these processes, we protect ourselves, provide transparency, and allows the board to have governance over that budget.
So it sounds like, Ms. Skipper, you'd prefer that the board direct all of it. Ms. Hanson, you would prefer that the board appoint a committee to direct all of it.
And I think eventually we have to. Is that right, Mr. Blocker? Eventually we will have an audit committee.
Yes, ma'am. An audit committee would be required. The audit committee doesn't necessarily have to be in place for y'all to make your selection. Y'all as a board can choose
some priority?
Whether it's individual or an entity or firm, and then the audit committee could be set up, but you will eventually have to have an audit committee.
I would prefer having the audit committee established first.
That's what I was just going to ask. Is there anything opposing that?
No, ma'am, I don't think so. There's no, so the audit committee actually receives the reports from the auditor, then provides it to y'all as a board.
So-
That's the format for.
If we had the audit committee to start with, then the committee could make the determination as to where, though, that scope of services, sort of the direction of where that, and that would then help us
But
with
do
the
you-
RFP to determine.
Do you have
what
to go
we
through that
want-
whole
what
process, or can you just
specialists
have a
we want.
meeting and invite certain people to the meeting who can objectively provide the information we need to make decisions? Like, do we have to have that audit committee done before we,
Well, what I was going to recommend if I may, to the board is, I think right now what would be helpful is for the board to give direction. It was kind of the chicken versus the egg. I think the staff, Mr. Brodsky and myself and staff need direction for y'all if y'all want to go, what direction y'all want to go. Then I think we have some do-outs to y'all. We need to bring back some alternatives, some different options for how to go through the selection process, whether we're going to set up the committee first. But there's a lot of work, a lot of staff work that we're going to need to do and start based on y'all's decision here today.
Okay.
So if we could, if it's helpful to the board, if we can get some direction as to whether you want an individual hire or a firm, because I think that will give us the direction that we need to come back and kind of map out the legalese of it. We do need to form a committee. We're going to have to modify some policies that y'all have in relation to this, and look at the RFP process. One of the benefits of the RFP process is you're looking at the finances, which is important. That's one of the reasons y'all want to do this. The other option is how y'all have selected firms before, for all y'all collectively to interview. So each has benefits and downsides based on what y'all are trying to do. But I think today, if we can get direction from y'all as whether we're going to hire a firm or an individual, then that will kind of give us what we need to start preparing. Some of what we're going to have to do anyway, we're going to have to set up a committee, modify the policies, but I think the direction as far as how we do that, I think we owe y'all some more information on that. So.
well, also, I think a firm would cost more, and I know at one point we were talking about being cost-effective and maybe not having the monies available at this time to have one, but I think there's benefits for both, right? So an independent auditor would get to know the district, would be here all the time, doing their job as they know how to do their job. They're kind of like an IG, an inspector general. They'll probably be less expensive to have just an independent auditor as defined by the state of Florida versus a firm. I know that we have a firm now, and it's a wonderful thing, but I also know that it did cost us more, but the value was worth it. So I'm interested in your reasons why you guys think the firm, because I really didn't spend a lot of time thinking about that, why you think a firm would be a better place for us.
I thought the opposite. I thought a firm would be more cost-effective for a lot of reasons. But when I looked at the RFPs from other counties, they ranged but hovered around $80,000 for a firm to do this service.
Okay.
If we were to hire an individual, I would assume the salary range would probably be in the same ballpark, but then you'd also have to cover benefits for that employee. You take on liability for that employee. I think just for cost-effective reasons, but then also what you talked about with the need for separation, which again was another reason why I wanted a firm for our legal team, was just the separation from our staff. They don't exist here every day. There's not those relationships, that instead it's an outside entity giving a black and white opinion. So that was kind of my reasoning for.
And I could be wrong, but I believe if it's a hire, then they are obviously obligated, they're responsible to our superintendent. And so
Right.
that's the independency that we
Well,
need.
not necessarily, because I think this position would be like the attorney's position where
Right.
they would be responsible to us.
It's under Florida statute for school board responsibilities.
Okay. But the whole thing is an opportunity for improvement. And I think the state was smart in making it at the $500 million mark, because if we're under that, the ability to recoup what we spend is difficult. But as we're growing, we might as well realize that this is going to be necessary to make sure operations everything is as smooth as possible. And I think we're probably making it harder than we realize, because I think the state can probably help us.
Well, and it came to my attention that apparently FADS offers
Yep.
a service like this that's far less expensive than going with a firm. So I don't know if that's something you guys want to consider as well, that we could just see what that would look like. As Mr. Blocker said, if we were going to use somebody other than an individual, show us what those options are. What are the pros and the cons, and what's the cost attached to it?
I think, I mean, I'm listening to you guys about the firm, and if it's anything like about having the depth like our law team has, then I would think that as long as we make sure that, you know, according to state law, we keep that independent, so that it's an authentic, independent person trying to help us do better, right? That's basically what we're talking about, is someone to help us go to a higher level and do better at our job. So, I mean, Ms. Skipper, do you have?
My thing is I just want us all to have a say, whatever that looks like. And then, because I want it to be transparent, but I want to make sure that we have a say, and knowing that our whole decision was for A, B, and C, and that we're not over here on X, Y, Z. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to make sure
You mean
that
for the
we're-
audit itself, or are you talking about?
just in general, like,
Exploring the hiring process, you mean?
the point of why we're doing this, and making sure that we as a board have the say.
And you know, it was something that just occurred to me. Part of the RFP, when you look at what it costs other counties, may have to do with the scope of work. So if we are smaller, or we have specific things that we want to target, as opposed to a more general, it may be more cost effective that way too. So, and then
it's
also
honestly-
another reason I think a firm would be great is when you commit to an employee, I feel like that's a much bigger commitment than committing to an annual contract for a firm. Because if we're not happy, then we have options, you know?
I'm fine either way. We could make a motion and vote now. I'm fine either way, and I appreciate your research, Ms. Gilhausen, and being able to explain that process, which we're not that familiar with right now. I think it's just a huge win for us in general, and I'm glad that we're on board.
Okay, so can I have a motion to move forward with, let's see, how should we word this? Engaging internal audit services through a firm.
I'll make a motion to approve, to engage in internal, do we want exploration in that, like it says here?
Just engage.
Engage internal audit services with a firm.
Okay, I have a motion from Ms. Bola. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Which one of you? Rock, paper, scissors? I'll take the second from Ms. Clark. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, we have no human resources special actions this evening. So the next on our agenda is a public hearing to approve as advertised modifications to the 2023-2024 student progression plan. I'll now open the public hearing. If you wish to speak on this item, this does not require a yellow card. You just need to approach the podium so I know that you'd like to speak. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for a motion.
I move approval.
I have a motion from Ms. Bola. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Ms. Hanson. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And item C5, approval for the purchase of vocabulary.com grades 7th through 12th, secondary ELA, and intensive reading for 2024 through 2027. And this item was pulled to discussion by Ms. Hanson. So Ms. Hanson, you have the floor.
So I'm grateful for the district because I asked for several items. One is I wanted to know currently how much curriculum do we have and how much time are students online? And so there was 4 different things. This would make a 5th program that would be according to our workshop, I guess 30 minutes a week. I really just want to talk as a teacher right now. So this is $250,000 of taxpayer money, and we had attached a contract. When I went to do research, and I'm going to tell you I'm a no, but I'm not a hard no, so be patient with me. When I went to do research with the company, there were claims of being data-driven, and I could not find where they came from. I could not find whether or not this program was aligned to Florida standards, and we have quite rigorous vocabulary standards. I started thinking about when a little more than a year ago, we removed Achieve 3000. And I actually caught a lot of flack for that. But I'll tell you what happened. We started to reinvent reading. People were working really hard because they didn't have this program to rely on, and our reading scores went up. I was never fearful for 1 minute that our reading scores would go down because of the loss of an online reading program. I will also say, in the item agenda, it specifies that there's a need for such a program based on test scores. I'm saying that I would want that data in front of me to make that decision with the $250,000 of taxpayer dollars. I'm saying I would want to know how it vertically aligns with Florida standards because it is taxpayer dollars. It is a program that we have not hired, have not purchased yet, so it's not taking anything from anyone. But my biggest concern when I researched, and I did leave my paper at home, so it's just rolling from my head right now. The number one reason kids lack vocabulary skills is because they don't read. In general, if we would just start an onslaught of trying to figure out how to get kids reading, happily reading again. So as a reading teacher, vocabulary is built through exposure. You have to use vocabulary words 15 times, 15 different ways. You have to generalize vocabulary words. You have to see a word in context, out of context. You have to learn morphology, how they put words together, Latin roots, Greek roots, how the suffix can change a root. So for example, scientific, ic, the study of, ology, the study of. When I was an ESE teacher, vocabulary was the most fun thing I did ever in my classroom. We would do skits, we would do, one of the real fun things is denotative and connotative language. Very, very fun to do with kids. Games with we have in Florida standards, at each grade level, kids have to learn these roots, right? Marsano did a huge study, and the study was, what kind of words are kids seeing on high stakes tests? What they found out was, if you teach the word which means not, that is a word that shows itself 33% of the time on a test. And from there on out, dis is 17%, like disappear. I went through the entire year of vocabulary entrenched in reading, entrenched in novels, entrenched in fun, having kids talk to each other, making visual dictionaries, acting out words, giving out candy when they used one of the roots in a new way every single day. What I'm saying to you as a board, to fix a problem by using $250,000 of taxpayer dollars, to me, I would rather invest that money in teachers and revamping the way that we teach vocabulary. It can be done. There are teachers in this district, and I'm not bragging, but I was one of them, that could raise every kid, including an ESE teacher, and most of the time it was through vocabulary study and for kids to be engaged in reading. I think adding another program, and like I said, maybe it is what we do. Maybe we need to do some research, because research right now, when you get online, is a big toss-up. ELL students by far benefit from the repetition of digital technology and learning language. They have to see words over and over again with pictures. But when it comes to regular students, there is no conclusion as to whether or not this would help, because in 2017, they thought it would help. And in 2021, after they researched again, they said it didn't really have an impact. What I'm saying is we need to start thinking conservatively about the money that comes before us, and I think we can do better. We have a district that raised our reading scores, a district that went into classrooms, helped teachers we can utilize master teachers, call them together, find out what they're doing, how do their kids learn to read every day, versus finding a program to put a kid on. And that's all I wanted to say. That's from my teacher heart.
Any other board comment? Questions?
I don't know enough about the program. I mean, I feel like I'm at a loss, so.
So, Madam Chair, to the chair, if I speak. Just a couple of things, points of clarification. I thank Ms. Hanson for her comments on the importance of vocabulary and the reading process, and she's absolutely right in that fact. But a couple things to consider here related to this topic. One, that the board has already approved through the reading plan the use of this product already on pages 3 of the reading plan, 14, and 24 all reference that, including the money is already there through the reading grant. That money is there. The program is already being used in some schools. The number of minutes in which is on the chart that Ms. Hanson references for the 7 through 12 piece, which is what this program is used for, is only used in intensive reading classes. So for me, when you look at it, the schools that are using it, it's proven to be successful. The number of minutes on the chart that you reference, Ms. Hanson, is actually overblown, because those are students that are in intensive reading only that would be using the Lexia product. So there's a couple of things. You've already approved this is now the contract. The contract, by the way, is a 3-year contract, with it being front-loaded 115 the first year, and then 50-something, I can't see that far.
Are you saying that
The other 2
Lexia,
years.
this is part of Lexia?
It's not part of Lexia.
We're
but the-
using it already,
But the number of minutes that you reference
because
for students
Lexia
being.
is used in intensive reading classes secondary as well.
Right.
So that's 2 programs.
So the problem that you're seeing here is that the number of minutes that you reference, like for a 7th grader, is 9 minutes for Penda and 10 minutes for Alex. And then you also see it as 21 minutes or 22 minutes for Lexia. That is not the whole school of
That's the
students.
average, yeah.
That's only the students that are in intensive reading. So one, you've already approved the product through the reading plan already, and the program is effective, so.
So we approved the product, and now we're supposed to approve the money for the product.
The contract is coming before you, yes. It's been used previously in other schools, which is why it's already in the curriculum
What
guides
schools-
and
what is
already
it?
used.
What schools have used it, and do we have data on that? I mean, can we
We
start
can
providing
certainly,
this when we?
right, and so, coming up and questions the day before it comes forward is probably not a good way to do business.
I wasn't questioning, I was talking. I
yeah,
was
so-
not questioning, I was talking about,
So,
do online programs help our kids read better?
okay, so we got the
much.
experts here that can go ahead and answer that question.
Hi, how are you? Heather Tito, Chief of Elementary, lead literacy as well. And so I have Michelle Sato here, who is our curriculum specialist for intensive reading. She works with all the high school teachers, and she's been supporting them. So I want her to be able to speak to and answer any of your questions, okay?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking all of this into consideration. I can answer some of your questions. I, first off, just want to say that I have the same heart for the kids that you do. I've been an ELA teacher, an ESE teacher, and I taught intensive reading in the high school. I have a passion that our kids become literate, and I 100% agree with everything that you said tonight. What I need to convey about this program is I personally used it when I taught intensive reading for 10th graders at Fleming Island High. I also used it for when I was the ELA teacher for the standard seniors at Fleming Island High. And it was the one thing that when these kids have come that far through their academic career and they haven't met the concordance score, this vocabulary program, because of the way I used it specifically for morphology. So I don't have to tell you that a morphograph is the smallest unit of meaning in a word, right? But if we give our kids those codes, I like to tell them it's cheat codes because they
I did
they
as
can
well.
relate to
It's
that,
like
right?
cheating, yeah.
It's gaming, you know, like if, and so we're going to get them to the next level. Here's your cheat codes. This unlocks the English language, biology. Bio means life, logi means study. So it's going to help these kids gain what they have missed throughout their academic career. And another point that I wanted to clarify is, yes, as Mr. Broski said, it is going to be used in the intensive reading classrooms. And one of the reasons why our scores were so great was because we started using a direct instruction program. SRA, if I say SRA, most people in the room know what that is. I was taught on SRA 100 years ago, right? But so that is what the kids are getting in 7 through 10 is this corrective reading program. So they're decoding, they're picking the words up off the page for the first time in their academic careers. So what I wanted to do was add this vocabulary, sorry, I'm nervous, vocabulary.com piece in to be able to bolster their vocabulary and background knowledge. The way the program works is the kids will see those words that I would create a curriculum scope and sequence that will tie in with the Spelling Through Morphographs direct instruction program, and those kids would use it maybe 15 minutes a week to bolster that program and bolster their ability to unlock our language and be able to read those books. So I think we're on the same page. I just wanted to give you my experience with it. I had seniors graduate
What
who
does it
wouldn't.
look like
So,
with Lexia? Because when I was using Lexia, it's pretty intensive,
yes,
especially your one-on-one instruction.
yes.
So how does that, in that one reading block, 5 times a week, how is that, what does that look like?
So the way I set up for the teachers last year was that there were 4 days of the direct instruction. So they would be doing the spelling through morphographs for the lesson, and then maybe there was 15 minutes of Lexia at the end of the spelling through morphograph lesson. Then on Fridays, I said those are flexible Fridays for the teachers because if you taught the ESE and the intensive reading kids, they don't like to come to school because school has not been a happy place for them. It's not been a place of success for them. So there's many times when those kids have been absent during the week, the teacher needs to pull them and do the lessons with them to get them caught up to where the rest of the class is. So flexible Fridays, teachers can pull these small groups and work with those kids one-on-one. So they're using Lexia for the other kids who are working.
I did that as well.
Absolutely, so did I. And so then I would just see this as being another station, or if you want to think about it as small group stations or what have you. But really, this is it's a phenomenal product, and I would love to show you more about it if we had more time.
Yeah, I wish you would have showed us. That would have been great.
I was there at the workshop. Sorry.
And she's such a humble woman. She's done a phenomenal job. Our teachers and our leaders in the schools have done amazing jobs. But when you look at the astronomical gains that we saw this last year, that was intentionally designed last year. And Michelle Sato was part of that team, as she said, using the direct instruction model through SRA. And I think what we're seeing now too is our kids can read. Right? So our high school students, they can read. The problem is that the level of rigor and being able to use metacognitive strategies to get what they're reading and to answer the complexity of the text is really based on the vocabulary, just like you said. So I think sometimes there's a misnomer that our children can't read, but the truth of the matter is they can. We just have to level it up. And that's where we need strategy instruction when we think about using vocabulary.com, spelling through morphographs. Actually, 2 days this summer, I provided an inference strategy through the University of Kansas with a co-op individual that I worked with in the past, Roseanne Arvin. We know that that's our next layer, because this first layer of attack was really like, okay, who are those kids that are really they just needed that nudge for that decoding. And then, okay, now those kids that are still struggling, it's those metacognitive. It's thinking about what you're doing in reading and getting it out on the paper. So that's really where we wanted to provide this as a tool and a resource. And again, it's not used every day, like she said, but to give teachers an additional resource that they can use, because spelling through morphographs is a tool that we're using in 4th grade, and we're also using it in intensive reading in certain grade levels, but we need to level it up. And this was just a resource, you know, to provide to our teachers to give them another resource to use. Sorry, I'm a little close.
And so, doing a program and learning some word parts doesn't make us master those word parts. So does this program, or maybe you already know what I'm about to ask you, that repetition on the short amount of time they are there, does it reteach, and if they don't know it, reteach again to mastery? And then are they able to use it in different ways, in different contexts?
Yes, ma'am, and they will see it again and again until they do get mastery, and it'll show them at the bottom. It kind of has a little coin, and it shows them at what % they are towards mastery. I personally use it to increase because I'm a word nerd, so I've got 4 million plus points on this, you know, game. The kids see it as a game, so I'm with you on, you know, vocabulary should be fun. I just want this to be one piece of it.
Well, there's other pieces that need to occur in the ELA classroom.
Correct,
And so-
correct.
And through other content areas, right?
Yeah, content
And
areas.
that's what we've been really pushing too, is that literacy is something that's universally everybody's responsibility. And this resource could be used by other individuals, like let's say you're a science teacher or a social studies teacher, and you want, you know, some extra.
So my biggest concern was I really didn't want everybody having access. When we first started Lexia, everybody was using it. It wasn't just done, so the kids kind of got bored with it because we were using it wrong at their very first year. And you remember this, like, and then you moved it into intensive reading.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you, the last 2 years, we've spent a lot of time with Lexia to refine that.
Yes.
Just what you said, the same thing here, like, we have really refined that and really strategized about how the best usage is with teachers, and in providing a lot of guidance there. So I don't disagree at all. I agree that we need to be very specific about the implementation and who and when they can use it.
And generalize across curriculum, right? I mean, they need to be using the word parts everywhere. It's like a whole school effort.
And you hit the nail on the head. It's a universal responsibility of all of us.
Yeah.
And that's part of the work that we've been doing too.
I just wanted to add that it also shows them the word in multiple contexts. So they have to know that it means something here in this context. So they're reading, you know, like a little paragraph, and it might be something pulled from a history or literature or science or a news article, speeches by presidents, that kind of thing. So they're reading those things. That's working on their background knowledge. They need that too. So this program does more than what a teacher could do.
Well, more than the website says it does. So,
I'm Melanie McIver, the supervisor of reading, work with Michelle, and I just wanted to jump on too, because one of the things it does do, it does have those ELA benchmark aligned, so we can pull those things that we know that they need additional practice on to really start leveling them up.
so it
on
might not
that.
be Florida standards, but it's ELA, like so connotative. It has like the same structure
The
as what
same.
our kids are tested on.
Yes, yeah. So, because we did a lot of research to make sure, like, because we want that, right? They need multiple layers, and making sure that a program that we buy provides that, because we're really working to become more diagnostic to know exactly what each child needs, because they're all different. Like, we all have different needs, right? And this was a program that was easy to do that for teachers, to really kind of dive down to what they need.
Well, I appreciate your time and effort, because believe it or not, the number one priority of a school board is to drive student achievement. And if you don't know, you're not supposed to vote on anything unless you know it's doing that. And that's why I brought it to discussion, and I appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
And if I could add also, it's a team effort with the school board and the entire staff. And thank you for that information. Ms. Clark, do you feel like you know it better?
Well, we would love
I was
also
sitting
the
here going,
opportunity
it might
to.
help
we
in
would-
Wordle and connections, you know what I?
We would also love the opportunity anytime to kind of tell you, and maybe even have during a workshop, sort of the vision, the work that we're currently in right now. I mean, we're doing a lot of, you know, we're lifting not just early literacy, but like, you know, again, 4th and 5th grade are going to be a huge focus for us as a district. but it's also across the board. Our goal is to create literate citizens that are going to be productive citizens in our community. So we would love it anytime if you want for us to come out and come do the next workshop. We'll be happy to present sort of like what our initiatives are, what we're working on, so you have a better understanding of the work and literacy in our district.
I love morphology, and I'm just hoping I get an invite so I can go play and try to catch up with her.
She is lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tito. Mr. Browski, was there anything further?
No, I just want to reassure the board, before we would bring something to the board for a vote, you see the people behind the scenes and the clear expertise among these folks. The results kind of show that when you look at 10th grade reading, we are 5th in the state of Florida. These are the kind of folks that are making these kinds of decisions, bringing them for you. We'd never bring that something to you that we didn't think would benefit our students. Now, the board agenda comes out 2 weeks prior to the board meeting, so the board agenda came out. If there's anything on that agenda that you want to be featured in a workshop, we'd be glad to feature it, but we don't know what's the item that you would like more information on unless you tell us you need more information on an item, and then we can present that to you. So thank you so much for listening.
Well, I just wanted to say I love the school showcases, but I love that more. You know, it's great to see the professionalism and expertise.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve.
Okay, I have a motion for approval from Ms. Bola. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Ms. Clark. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
There it is.
All right, next is the adoption of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
I have a motion from Ms. Hanson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Ms. Skipper. Any discussion? No, there were no agenda items. It was all general comment. All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, next on our agenda is the CCEA update. Ms. Kidwell, anything from you guys?
No.
Nope. Oh, I'm sorry. You are correct. I skipped over that. Forgive me. Thank you, Ms. Kidwell. Public comment is next. Our first speaker is Travis Christensen. Just as a reminder, when you come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record.
Travis Christensen, 2871 Affirmed Court. Wanted to talk a little bit about books and literature. It's been a big subject in Clay County. Before, I just want to say, it sounds like a very good effort on y'all parts to try and increase children's reading ability. Because basically anything else you learn in school, if you forget it or you don't learn it, you can learn it later if you know how to read. And if you don't, you really can't. And it's very good. Clay County, 5th in reading in the state. Of course, if I'm going to be literate tonight, I just want to pull out a quote from the Greek philosopher Epictetus. A weak man appears strong until a stronger man comes along. But anyway, I don't know. Test scores based against what standard? Just wanted to say literature. Okay. Some people have problems with some of the books in our school, like this guy over here. And a lot of times it's based upon there's some racy stuff, self-destructive behavior in there. I just want to put something past you, but it's often countered by, well, there's literary value or it teaches empathy, whatever. I just want to put something before you. The last book I read in English was Wild. Pretty popular book in women's literature. I think it's a few years old now, but still probably a lot of people read it. And awful lot of self-destructive behavior described by the author in that book. But it does got two things in it. I believe it's just beautifully written, great use of language and imagery. And the other thing I think is even more important, it's got a redemptive arch to it. Now, this lady, she's having this is an autobiography. Lady's having a bad time. It leads her to make bad decisions, which causes her to have even more of a bad time. And she goes walking in the mountains for a long, long time and figures it out. Kind of a redemptive arc. I feel, and now this is a very general thing, I haven't really looked at this a whole lot, that a lot of the books that arrive in our school that people are objecting to are really just inducted due to like the type of book they are, like LGBTQ and POC stuff, very popular at this point in time. And I think the publishers are just sending it because it's gonna sell. Could we maybe evaluate some of the stuff to come in and see if it's worth reading, if it's something that you really want a kid to read? Like if they are having a bad time, maybe they can get a little bit of that redemptive art stuff going on as well. Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
All right, our next speaker is Chris Harris.
Good evening. I get more than 3 minutes because we skipped over it, right? No? Okay. I wrote this down. I'm usually an off-the-cuff kind of guy, but I wrote it down. So I want to, first of all, thank Mr. Brodsky and the school board members for your time and attention and allowing me to speak tonight. This is something that I've wanted to do for years, but for various reasons have not done so. However, my fiance is very quick to always tell me that if I'm going to complain about things which I like to do, then at least that I can do is address those in a decision-making capacity, so here I am. Clay County is again an A school district, and according to the U.S. News and World Report, Florida is the #1 ranked state in the nation for the second year in a row, based on a combination of strong performances in higher education and K through 12 metrics. And yet Florida ranks 50th out of 50 states, including the District of Columbia, so 51, in terms of teacher pay. Only West Virginia falls below Florida. In what other industry would this be the case where someone or a group of people would be voted the best in their field and yet be paid the worst? I can't think of one. First, a little bit about myself. I became a teacher because of my mother, who we lost 13 years ago. She always wanted to be a teacher. She loved children and ran an in-home daycare in our house growing up, and she taught me a love for teaching and for children, and that's why I became a teacher. I've been a teacher for 20 years. I've been blessed to have most of those 20 years at OPE, which I consider to be one of the best schools in the state. I'm not the best teacher, but I am proud of the work that I do, and I think it is what I was truly meant to do. I want to say that I have nothing against new teachers, and I'm happy that new teachers get a starting salary that they now receive. They deserve it. And the county and the state as a whole has underpaid teachers very drastically, so much so that we were faced with the teacher shortage that we're dealing with statewide. Therefore, the government and Tallahassee had to raise teacher salaries in order to get people in the door. Unfortunately, they did nothing for veteran teachers, in my opinion, which I know is out of your hands. However, I know that CCA has put a proposal to increase veteran teacher salaries, and I strongly urge you to consider that. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip some of this other stuff and just give you just a brief snapshot of myself. As I said, I'm a 20-year teacher. I didn't become a teacher to become rich or wealthy. I never had that in my head. However, when I did become a teacher, we did have a salary schedule, which has long since been made obsolete. So at 20 years teaching, I barely gross $50,000 a year. That's not considering the thousands of hundreds, let's say, of hours of free overtime that I put in every year. I have a hard time making bills. I have one child who I share the financial responsibility with my ex-wife. I have a very modest mortgage. Neither my fiance or I have car payments. We don't live a lavish lifestyle or go on crazy vacations. And every day I have to worry about, if my car breaks down, what am I going to do? I've had to forego medical procedures because I can't afford them. I can't afford long or short-term disability under the county's insurance, so that if something was to happen to me, that I could afford to take care of my family. And so I had a lot more. I'm a very wordy person, but since I'm out of time, I just strongly urge you guys to really think about the people on the front lines that are giving us these scores when you look at the proposal for raising veteran teacher salaries so that we can have a livable wage, so to speak. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I don't think anybody here disagrees.
And by the way, Mr. Harrison, you are one of the best teachers we have.
All right, our next speaker is Bruce Friedman.
Tell you where you can save some money. Bruce Friedman, address on file. I've completed 74 book challenges this month, pretty much just to see if I could. 73 of them are books I would not give my child or yours. One of them is a really good book. So why am I challenging a really good book? I mean, a book that made me feel that I had grown when I finished it, that was written with some style and pizzazz. On the About the Author page at the end of this book is a link. I'm not going to say it out loud. It's a very innocuous sounding title. I clicked on it. It took me directly to XXX adult pornography. It's found in a couple of your junior highs and 4 of your high schools. I brought this to the attention of some of you more than a week ago. Now I brought it to the attention of the press. They're going to run with it. You're going to enjoy that immensely. Some of the things that came up from others speaking tonight. Get kids happily reading again. Well, 73 of these won't make that happen. One of them would if you could get the horrible porn link out of the back. I'll leave it up to you and your scissors to find it. Somebody said level it up. You want the kids to read better books, to know better words. I want that too. This is not how you get there. Your libraries are filled with a lot of rubbish. That's why you're getting this pile of challenges. The Trevor Project link that I referenced in the past, which actually facilitates grooming of children, private chat rooms with kids 13 to age 24, with nobody monitoring. The 24-year-old could be 44 or 64. That was just a warning. Well, now that we're past that point, and I found adult pornography in your junior highs that's a click away from your children, someone has to go step up, read every book, and assume every link is suspect. Pull them all. Regarding the books, 500 or so that have already been found to violate law that are stored God knows where, get them out of these buildings. I've been asking for 2 years what happens to them. I want them gone. If they're still in the building, they're still accessible to children just because they're under lock and key. Kids are crafty. If it's handy, they'll find a way. These books need to leave. They need, in some cases, to actually be destroyed. Some of them are that dangerous. It's up to you what happens next. I'm going to deliver these to your officer. I know you're going to rule on those appeals.
Madam Chair.
All 500 of them, I doubt very much any of you read most of those books like I did, which was no fun. The fact that you're acting as a quasi-judicial body instead of protectors of our children is a great concern. I'd like you to revisit your whole mission statement. Consider that you ought to be child-centric. We didn't hire you as a quasi-judicial body. We hired you to protect our children. Have a good night.
Next is Echo Nova.
Madam Chair, I just
Yes,
want
Mr.
to
Blacker.
just address, I want to give the speaker an opportunity to speak. First of all, state law requires you to act as a quasi-judicial matter, so I would encourage you to continue to follow state law. In addition, state statute has changed. We do not accept multiple challenges to books based on the abuse that's gone forward, so we can accept one challenge tonight per state law. So I would encourage, if you would direct the speaker to select which challenge he would like to submit for this month, we can accept one challenge.
So, Mr. Friedman, according to legal advice, based on state statute, you're allowed to submit one. So we'll leave that to you to decide and hand to one of our deputies. Our next speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Blocker. Our next speaker is Echo Nova.
Hello, I am Echo Nova, representing Quality Authority today. Address is on file. With the school year coming in about 2 weeks for the students, I thought it would be good to take a couple moments just to review the current state of trans and LGBTQ protections that we have for the students. Since it's been in the news for the past too many years, and there's been a whole bunch of stuff happening with the schools in particular. So first, with the couple of bad things, the anti-trans bathroom bill or law and the Fairness in Women's Sports Act are still in enactment. So both of these bills, both of these laws treat trans kids as basically second class. They are less than equal to their other compatriots in the classrooms. Today, there could have been good news regarding these two laws because August 1st, today would have been the enactment of the Biden administration's revamping of Title IX, which extended protections to trans students. However, Florida is one of the 23 states where that will not happen because it is currently challenging it in the courts. This is also in conjunction with a couple of other things happening around the state that doesn't necessarily affect schools that much, but will affect the students. The BOMBU, the Boards of Medicine and Osteopathy, have a conflict regarding medicine that will affect students. And the executive branch has also basically banned trans people from changing their licenses to reflect who they are, names and their gender identity. There are a couple good things, though, that we can work on. In particular, the Don't Say Gay settlement that happened in March through Equality Florida. Basically summarized in two very short, snippy lines. You can say gay in classrooms, and gay-straight alliances are allowed. So with these two statements, I would like to ask the school board and the superintendent to work to foster a community of acceptance and respect, to ensure that identities are accepted and protected, that preferred pronouns are accepted and protected, students and teachers and staff, to ensure that names and dead names are also respected as they should be, to allow the GSAs to come back and really flourish as they are now allowed to do so. And mostly just to ensure that people are respected as they are. So thank you very much.
All right, now Ms. Kidwell, do you have a presentation for us tonight?
And then one for Ms.
So, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share concerns and needs of our educators as they revealed to me because they email me and text me all the time. Last December, we worked together to ratify a contract that represented well over $4 million in new compensation. This district and our school board has shown the willingness to stretch to meet employee needs. First, I want to say thank you. We see that and we acknowledge it. It's very positive. However, there's so much more to do, and that's my job, to tell you what we need to do. As you know, CCA and Clay County are in open books for 24-25 negotiations. We've had 3 sessions, and our educators have been very vocal about their needs. CCA has had advisory groups come to us and meet with our bargaining team to help craft language to meet the needs of their special job classification. The contract needs to address the concerns to those who serve our students' special areas like health-related professionals and ESE areas. CCA has passed many proposals across the table, and we even shared some proposals for compensation on July 25th. We will have more proposals in the next session, August 22nd and 26th. Our spring survey gave specific feedback to us, stressing further corrections to improve the salaries of veteran teachers. Veterans were left out of the state's mandated focus when the state mandated focus on base salary increases for 3 years. These state mandated increases raised the base salary nearly $10,000 and compressed all other salaries. We have been directed by educators to continue to help the district understand how unfairly our veteran teachers have been treated by salary compression and the loss of steps, and to convince you to continue to work with us to target veteran teacher salary corrections. We know that negotiating is never easy. There's never enough public school funding to meet the needs of our workforce. The evidence of this issue is clearly proven by the latest statistic that shows the average Florida teacher salary ranks have dropped from 48th to 50th. CCA is committed to serving the needs of all our educators, as I know you want to do. These bargaining details that are out there have been submitted. They're across the table, and they are now public record. Educators are discussing them. They're calling me, and we hope that school board members will be examining them closely too. We have heard you say that you want to pay educators more and that you are open to thinking outside the box. This is very hopeful for us. Budgets do reflect priorities. That is what my predecessor, Rena Lee, used to say. And while we all understand the necessity for fiscal responsibility, we urge you to have a budget that considers the needs of your workforce. These proposals were crafted to reflect critical workforce needs, and Clay County District School, we know, strives to provide services that meet the needs of every student. Our amazing instructional staff is why Clay County District Schools is not only an A-rated district consistently, but exceptional in many other ways. We understand that limited public school funding will never allow increases that reflect what educators in Clay really deserve. But we invite you to join us in the commitment to stretch for robust increases that will improve recruitment, retention, and lead us to fully staffed Clay County District Schools. Our community places the highest priority on exceptional schools, and we know that this board shares our desire to provide the best working and learning conditions in Clay. We can do it together. I want you to notice and really examine that paper. That's what teachers look at and that makes them so unhappy. You see that salary scale from 2008. Remember, we only have an entry-only salary scale. So even though it looks like our 20-year teacher that was just up here would be above 50,000, he's not, because he put on that scale wherever he comes into the district and never moves on that scale again. That scale is entry level only. The only way he gets a raise is when we negotiate it with you and you give it to him. So there's nothing that they can expect, and that's why they're so unhappy, and that's why veteran teachers continue to leave. Let's see if we can fix this. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Kidwell. Do we have a CESPA update tonight? Okay. Superintendent Broski.
All right, excited to go back to school. We had our last meeting with principals this morning, and we went over like everything, like the last minute stuff. Eyes were like this wide because everybody figured out teachers are back on Monday, students are back on the 13th. So we're looking forward to that. Before we do that, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the following: state assessment results, some information about the new school year, transportation, immunization, as well as some upcoming events. So first, our state assessment results came in since our last meeting. And if you're looking for how did Clay County do, the most objective way to do that is compare yourself to others that are in the same environment that you're in. You can't compare people that are in different environments under different circumstances. So when you do that, the fairest thing to do would be to compare our district to others, not like it's a competition, but it's a measuring stick as to where you rank in comparison to other districts. So when you see that, let me just kind of point out a couple things to you. Second in overall social studies in the state of Florida, first in 7th grade civics, fourth overall in U.S. history. Our history folks from the days of Kelly Watt working in that group have been rock stars. Every year, you'll see that Clay ranks at the top of the state, in the top 5 in all social studies category. I know that in Clay County in particular, the civics is a particular important emphasis to our citizens, and we're very proud of that particular ranking. It doesn't end there. When you look at science, in 8th grade, we're 5th in the state. In biology, we're 6th. In overall science, we're 6th in the state of Florida. Like, this is facts. It's not Facebook. It's real, okay? I forgot, what's the other one? Facts, not Facebook. Information, not Instagram. Thank you. Okay. Math, 4th in the state for geometry. I remember when we were in the 20s in geometry. In algebra, we're 6th in the state of Florida in algebra. And of course, Algebra 1 is a gatekeeper, just like reading is to graduate. You have to pass the test or you don't graduate, right? So that's a whole thing. In grades 3 through 8, 9th in 3 through 8th math, and overall math, we're in 10th place. Probably our biggest improvement is in reading. Okay, we went from 12th last year to 8th this year in ELA. So when you look at that grade level wise, for 6th grade, we're 7th in the state. For 7th grade, we're 9th in the state. For 8th grade, 8th in the state of Florida. 9th grade is 6th in the state of Florida, and 10th grade is 5th in the state of Florida. So I would kind of offer this up to people that are just listening, like, hey, maybe the programs that are being recommended and the things that are being done are those things that are needed in order to illustrate and make that success happen. You know, it's great teachers in the classroom, and I'm so sorry that Mr. Harris left, because I was going to announce a big OPE statistic. Orange Park Elementary School is the #1 public school statewide, public elementary school when it comes to student achievement. Like, how about this? Patterson Elementary School is the #10 school statewide. That's all school out of the thousands of schools. #10 in the state of Florida. It's like when you look at the success is because there's an intentional plan for how to deal with that. It starts with curriculum guides. It starts with our curriculum specialists providing support to each teacher within the classroom. It comes to picking materials wisely that are in alignment with the standard. It comes to training and professional development. It's much more than just a book or a textbook or those kinds of things. And of course, ultimately, it comes down to the teacher in the classroom, right? When it comes to student success, the #1 highest index is the teacher in the classroom, followed by what? Anybody want to take a guess? What's the #2? Leadership of the school is the #2 factor for student success. So I think I can draw some conclusions from this. I'm just going to go out on a limb and make some conclusions from this. And you guys know what I'm going to say. This is not a good school district. This is a great school district. Not because Dave Broski says so or because I'm superintendent, because the facts bear that out. That's why. And there's an intentional plan to keep that going. So I'm very, very proud of that. You can tell I'm passionate about that. Sorry. Sorry for that. When it comes out, I sit there nervously at the computer like I'm giving birth or something. I'm ready to and then I look at this line, and then eventually I calm down and I look at it all and I take a step back and I reflect and say, I'm just so proud, of everybody. I kind of feel like, there's a tremendous weight that I always feel on my shoulders because I take it personally, right? And I want the best for our students. And so this illustrates, now is there more to be done? My dad said, if you weren't first, second place is first loser, right? And so there's obviously work to be done, but to not recognize that as an exemplary report card on a district in so many ways would be remiss. I think it would devalue the hard work of teachers. It would devalue the hard work of administrators and leadership and our support staff. So I'm gonna go ahead. Can I break the rules? Okay. Can we get a big round of applause from the Peanut Gallery? Thank you. I just wanted to show you how the rest of the state did so you can kind of get a little glimpse, and I'll go quickly through these. I love this stuff, and I know I'm passionate about it, but not everybody is. So when you take a look at this, 67 to 80%, we blew away the rest of the state when it comes to social studies. You can see in the history portion of that, 67 to 81, a difference of 14 there when you're looking at the state average. By the way, I always try to, I don't mean to do this, but I think it's also important to realize that in per capita income, Clay County is 26th out of the 67 counties. And what you would see is an almost direct correlation between per capita income and student achievement. And so to me, when I look at that, I take a little extra pride. And it means that our folks are certainly punching above their weight. Still more work to be done, right? But by golly, we should celebrate the work that's been done as we gear up for a new school year. Clay is 6th in the state of biology, a 10-point spread there from the rest of the state of Florida. Algebra 1, you can see a 16-point gap from the rest of the state and Clay in Algebra 1. Geometry, now here's the part, when I start doing math on the fly like this, I'm like, okay, 16 is, I believe. Thank you, Ms. Troutman. Ms. Troutman's smiling, she's a math teacher. Then you're looking at ELA, 8th grade, we're 8th in grades 3 through 10, 6th in the middle school category, 6 through 8, 5th in 9th and 10th. If you look at that statewide, that's just not me saying it, it's facts, not Facebook. Writing achievement, how about this? 2nd in the state in writing, 91%. 6th grade writing. Thank you, Ms. Watt. Ms. Watt keeps me straight. How about this? I can hear you over there. So another thing it's kind of a little bit challenging to explain. There's such a thing called ATSI, and what ATSI is the federal government is also involved within states, even though that education's a state-run organization, and therefore all of our marching orders come from the Florida Department of Education. The federal government also looks at how students do, particularly in certain subgroups. How do your students with disabilities do? How do your students that are economically disadvantaged do? How do your African American students do? And there's a series of subgroups. And last year, we had 25 schools that were on the ATSI list, meaning we needed to pick up how those subgroups did in our schools. This year, after these results, there's only 4 of those on the list. Now, keep in mind, every school, even our neighbors to the east, has schools that are on that particular, did I get it right? East, yeah, I'm not calling them out, publicly or anything like that. But when you see that, it means what? It means that the intentional plan that was implemented last year worked. And I'm going to throw a shout out to Dr. Sanders and our ESE folks. I know sometimes it's very difficult, especially with students that have a disability. As a parent, it's very difficult. And to move the needle as much as we have moved the needle for our ESE folks is impressive. In fact, I saw that the folks from the state sent an email saying, hey, we want to come out and see what happened. How'd that happen? Okay, that kind of thing. Very, very proud of that. I'll also throw a shout out to Ms. Collins, who kind of organized the walks. We did that through a variety of techniques. We went out to each one of those schools and walked the schools, went in the classroom. We rounded classroom instruction. We implemented an action plan in each one of those schools. All of those things just don't happen by accident. They're all intentional, but they're all the things that people don't see, right? People wouldn't know that because the work is happening behind the scenes in order to make those improvements. So extremely proud of that. Our ESE Summit, there's examples of that. 300 attendees, you can see them there. They all came. There's over 60 different sessions for ESE. You know that we have 21% of our students fit into the ESE, or a little bit more than that, 21 to 22% are in ESE. So developing strategies, high leverage practices that work for ESE students are also good for Gen Ed students also, and that restructuring of services is also going to make a big difference in this upcoming year. So a lot of work with the ESE folks. I wanted to recognize them, not because I'm married to one of them, but because they're sincerely doing great work within that department. Okay, for a new school year, how about this? Are we not excited to come back? Students return on the 13th, so parents, don't send them when everybody else sends them on the 12th. Send them on the 13th, please. Our onboarding camps are going on and continuing on for next, whether it's Web Crew or Web Link for the junior highs or the high schools. It's a great opportunity. Going to junior high is kind of scary, and going to high school is kind of scary. It's one of those times where there's a big transition where you're in elementary school and then you're going to junior high, and you're probably, as a child, nervous about that. And then when you're going to high school for the first time, there's a little bit of nerves that go with going to high school for the first time.
We will be attending Camp Blue Devil on Tuesday.
There you
next
go.
week.
There you go. There you go. So part of that transition, very proud of that transition. In-service day is August 8th. This is just a little smorgasbord, 67 different sessions for teachers as far as professional development. Our professional development department, maybe I haven't given them a shout out, but I would say I'm going to call them the best professional development department in the state of Florida. How about that? Every time I go to a superintendent's meeting and I kind of explain what we're doing in Clay County, they say, well, how do you do that? Like, who does that? Like, how does that? Most of that comes out of that department. So kudos to Dr. Shepard and all of her group. Back to school information. We got a handy dandy link for everybody that wants back to school information, and you can see all the categories that are on there. I wanted to also point out transportation. I'm just going to say it because I said it to principals this morning. Mr. Crawford, and I hope he doesn't get a big head, Mr. Crawford's a rock star, okay, in the transportation world. So all routes have been established. How about this? We actually expanded the number of routes to cut down on student time on the bus, because if you have more routes, then the buses have to go less miles, and so the student is on the bus less. That means you have to have hired more drivers, right? If you have more routes, you have to hire more drivers. Right now, and he's going to hate the fact that I'm saying this because he's going to think he's jinxed because I'm actually saying this, and we not only have every driver filled, but we actually have extra drivers, more than the routes that we have.
You did say this last year and you jinxed it.
Well, I was just so darn proud because he showed me the numbers. I was like, oh my God, we've never been to that level of staffing at this point. Now, I think too, he creates an environment where people want to work, and that's an important part of why people stay. And to the board's credit, the board also provided him support. You probably don't remember, maybe you do remember, the area managers and the things that you put out there in order to help facilitate that. 13,000 people are involved in that program, students, I mean, plus the employees that are involved. You can't just have a director and a supervisor and think it's going to all work out in the end. And so you guys provided the support that he needs. He has the personality and the drive. I'm going to tell you, hard worker. Like, we're talking 6, 7 at night. All kinds of stuff happens. Tries to be as polite as possible through some difficult situations. So I said to the principals, I gave this, kudos this morning, and I said, now, does that mean that a bus is not going to be late? No, not in the first couple of days. I encourage all parents, board members, everybody to realize that when you start school, it may be the only organization in the world that I'm aware of that is not there, and then all of a sudden at one time, after a couple of weeks' time, you turn everything back on again. And when you do that, that creates some challenges, personnel-wise, technology-wise. There's all kinds of stuff that happens on those first couple of days. Transportation support for families. Just go to the bus at myoneclay.net for bus planner. You can see here comes the bus app. You want to register for that so you know where your bus is. So if your bus is late, you can track it in real time and know when the bus is going to be there. Bus routes are now available. If you have questions, there's the hotline. It's 336-0001, option 2. And let me just tell you, he has a whole group of people there to support you. We ask for patience the first couple of days. I mean, everybody's on the road at the same time. Right now, people aren't used to buses being on the roads, and so it's kind of easy to get around if you're around at that time. When everybody's on the road at the same time, it creates a whole different dynamic, and patience is the order of the day. Entry requirements for kindergarten and 7th graders. You can see the listing there. That's the state of Florida's certification of immunization. Want to remind parents of that. Schools send out reminders to individual parents that are in need. Want to make sure that they know fairgrounds, first come, first serve, $15 for any child to receive their necessary vaccination. Upcoming events. Teachers return on Monday, students on the 13th, Labor Day is the 2nd. College and Career Night. Can you believe that's already here? College and Career Night at the Fairgrounds on the 3rd, 6 p.m. If you can't tell, I'm extremely proud, and I appreciate the support of the board and the community.
Well, thank you, Mr. Broski. All good things, lots of celebrations. School board attorney remarks. Mr. Blocker, anything from your office?
No, ma'am, I think we're good. Thank you.
School board member remarks. Anybody have anything to add? Ms. Bola?
I've got a couple of things. I am proudly wearing my A, thanks to Ms. Halter from Clay High. And I believe Clay High was an A school this year. Awesome. A couple of different things. First of all, a quick comment about Dolly Parton Imagination Library. Continue those donations, please, and continue for any children who are in the Green Cove Springs area or the Orange Park town area. We are taking registrations, and a huge shout out to Ms. Clark. Thank you so much for contributing some of your election funds to the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. With donations like that, we can continue. And their plans for, they just had an event at Culver's at Middleburg, making additional money. I mean, whatever it takes, guys. We are there to do whatever we can for early literacy, because early literacy, as you pointed out with parents as well as families, helps the teachers ultimately in the classroom as well. A shout out to, first of all, Melissa Matz, who was our state teacher of the year. Melissa and I, and that was in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. She was a teacher at Argyle Elementary in the math department. She's now one of our math, I say coaches in general, but I know she's much more specific than that. But this year, we had another teacher who formerly taught with us at Argyle Elementary, and her name is Jamie Suarez. For those of you who remember Jamie at Argyle, I believe she went on to Doe as well, and unfortunately, her husband took a job in another county, and she is now the teacher of the year for the state of Florida for 2025 out of Hernando County. So special congratulations to Jamie. We are all so dang proud of her, it's not funny. And having taught with both of them, they are amazing teachers, amazing teachers. The last time I was in the classroom as a teacher was 8 years ago. And I know it's the beginning of the school year because I had a dream the other night, and it was the first day of school. I was assigned a 2nd grade class, and I walked in. I didn't have a list of any of the students' names. I had to find the supplies. This was obviously not my classroom because the classroom was not arranged the way I would have arranged it. And I woke up that morning and I thought, at least I didn't have to do sub-plans. I mean, I was just like, oh my gosh. So I know it's the beginning of the school year. I also know it's the beginning of the school year because I was behind a couple of buses this week, and they were out practicing. And I was driving along, and of course they stop and they put out their stop signs and they open the door and they close the door and they close the stop signs and keep going. And I'm thinking, nobody got off that bus. What is going on? But they're out practicing so that not only do they have their routes set, but all of these drivers are practicing their routes so that they know that they can do it in a timely manner. And oh my gosh, bus service, stuff the bus, yes. When the director says, oh wait, I've got the keys to that bus, I'll pull the full bus out and bring in a second bus from Stuff the Bus. And then we saw them last Saturday at the Thrasher Horn, and once again stuffed with backpacks as they're handing out backpacks to children. It was, that team of bus drivers and transportation people is truly, truly amazing. The first day of school is, for teachers, is coming up on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. And it makes me almost sad because I miss buying some of those school supplies for my classroom and things. I miss going into the Tools for Schools. I know that there were 2 events this week for our new teachers, and the upcoming one is next week for our current teachers. And students are coming on that first day of school. I am unfortunately going in for some surgery tomorrow, so I do not want to miss that first day of school activity. And one of the activities that I love is stepping out to the bus compound at 5:30 in the morning to say thank you to our bus drivers. So if for some reason I don't make it, which could happen, I just want to say thank you to all of our staff members, our teachers, our students. You know, people always say, well, teachers get the summer off. Based on what I've been seeing and the training that has been going on in this county throughout the summer, I know for a fact teachers do not get the summer off. So if any of you are taking a day or 2 now just to relax, please do so. Stay away from school, come back Monday, and enjoy, because it's going to be a great year. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Skipper?
Yeah, mine's really brief and kind of all over the place, because I'm actually balding right here due to early literacy and my kids being home for the summer. So this has been real fun. I don't know that I should admit that, but it's actually true. It is. I think it's going. Mr. Broski, you pointed out the operations department, or transportation operations. I sometimes get to go visit over in that department, and Mr. Crawford has done a very good job the last 2 years. Just us being on the board, he's made significant changes, and his open mind and outside perspective, I think, has been very beneficial for that department, and he's done so well. So I just wanted to piggyback off of that because he has worked his butt off. I've seen it, and I've got to hear some of his ideas, and especially with the situation that he had, overcoming all of that. So I do want to say that I'm extremely proud of him, and that whole area. All the employees over there are great too, which everybody is. I don't mean to just boast on them, but you had mentioned that, and I get to talk to them here and there. Also, I want to go on record to say, without getting in trouble, that this board is for veteran teacher pay. I just want to say that very loud, and has been the last 2 years. So that I have, I don't know about before, I'm sure they were too, but I'm just saying, I want to go on record without getting into too much trouble that that's where I stand. And then also, I'm just ready for football season.
Hear, hear.
Whether it's high school, Georgia Bulldogs, I'm ready for all the fall festivities and getting our kids back to school next week. Sorry for you teachers, but come get mine.
Ms. Clark, did you have anything?
Are you sure? Okay. I want to first say kudos to all the teachers and all the support staff for those teachers for bringing in an atmosphere that children want to learn and for helping one another. I mean, that is key. It's a very, to me, what I see is a very positive attitude, and that makes all the difference in the world. So thank you. Mr. Crawford, it has been amazing what he's done the last 2 years that he's been here. In fact, I noticed when we had the retirees, there were very few bus drivers that were leaving, and that's a good sign. And Mr. Crawford is one of those that if they're short bus drivers, he'll get in a bus and drive it. And there aren't too many transportation directors that will do that. And so he's amazing, and can't say enough. Dolly Parton Imagination Library. The first thing when I got involved was doing the numbers. And we're back to, with the number of people in this county, 240,000, roughly, give or take, whatever the census is for this year. It only takes 700 people to give up one pizza a month. That's $25 a month on a reoccurring situation. And every child in every zip code would have the opportunity, if their parent wants to sign up for those books, for that early reading, that it's doable. That's all we need. So it's real easy. Got the QR code for donating. You know, it's real easy, and they're wonderful books. There's no porn in them. So, you know, anyway, whatever we can do, and I was happy to give any donation. So, thank you, that's it.
Ms. Hanson?
So real quick, we were really sad at our house this week because I was hoping my daughter could hold on to being a teacher and had to walk away this year, and it was very, very sad for us. You know, 2 kids, and I understand what teachers feel, and I think everybody knows where I stand on that. The other thing is, I had a conversation with Mr. Brodsky the other day, and he was saying how nobody knows how hard we work. I'm going to tell you, we need more of what they just did standing right here. People need to know, and they do not know, many teachers do not know. It shouldn't be a secret what we're doing to help this lower quartile of kids. The passion that you have when you spoke up here reinvigorated me. Why we don't know about the work is probably our greatest loss, because any parent who has a child in high school in a reading class wants to hear what these lovely ladies had to say tonight. I say part of the problem is that we don't know, and we should know. And what I mean by that is our community should know about your walks and what you're doing. If you do not advocate for yourselves and help people understand how much you're doing for them, they'll never know. If it was up to me, I would have one person talk every time for 5 minutes about what we are doing for kids, so parents are more educated on what is going on to help their kids learn to read. And so it took that for me to understand that maybe there is more we can do, and what that is helping people understand what we are doing for their kids. So I thank you.
All right. Well, I am all for a literacy workshop. The bibliophile in me got real excited listening to you guys talk, and I think it'd be wonderful to have them present and showcase. I mean, especially with the way that you guys have moved the needle here in Clay County and the state, I think it's a perfect opportunity for us to really highlight the work that's being done and celebrate in a meaningful way together. So maybe we can look at scheduling something, and then. We would love it. All right, let's make that happen. To all the parents and all the kids out there getting ready for school, I just want to reiterate, at every turn throughout my personal journey through education here in Clay County, my children's journey through education here in Clay County, we have encountered the most kind, compassionate, engaged human beings in the school district. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity that my kids have had to learn here, that I've had to learn here. And I just want to encourage all of those with the first day jitters to know that you're walking into a building filled with people who care about you and know you before you've even gotten there. They've studied up on you, guaranteed. So don't be afraid to ask those questions, to meet with the teacher and the leadership at your school about any concerns. I always encourage whenever I get emails, have you talked to the teacher? Have you talked to the principal? Those are the most important people in your child's life outside of your home. So make sure that you're building those relationships and that there's close communication there. The teacher wants it just as much as you do as a parent. It's vital to your child's success. And then for all the teachers and the administrators, which administrators, I know you've been working all summer, thank you for what you do. Thank you for the selfless service that you give. Everybody here knows it. You don't do it for the money. And we're thankful for your heart for kids and for education. And with that, this meeting's adjourned.